from your admit. That was according, the Army Corps provided that as a solution in their 2009 study down at New Buffalo, and Greg Wycamp has the entire study.
Yep. Honestly, sir, I think it's a complete no-brainer, and it has the potential to be a game changer.
Yeah.
Okay, we are live.
Okay.
We're live, Commissioner Yarborough.
Good morning. The Berrien County Finance Committee is now in session. Annette, would you tell us what we need to do for the roll call?
Yep, we're gonna do a roll call. Stephanie's here. She's way over in the corner by the flag.
Okay. And when you do it, please say your name and your community and that it's virtual. Good morning, Stephanie. Would you call the roll, please?
Good morning. Commissioner Yarborough?
Mamie L. Yarborough, City of Benton Harbor by Zoom.
Commissioner Harrison?
Tom Harrison via Zoom from Lincoln Township.
Commissioner Hinkleman?
Yes, Commissioner Hinkleman is here from Baker's County. Zoom.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scott?
Commissioner Scott via Zoom from New Buffalo Township.
Thank you all and welcome. Our full committee is here. Annette, will you call the meeting or call the people?
Sure. So in the room, you have Ben Reynolds and Chris Weihart and Warren Parrish and Brian Bissett. And the first thing on your agenda today is Information Systems Director Chris Weihart with an IS COVID project update.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just wanted to give you an update on the CARES Act projects that we're working on. We had a bit of change of direction, so to speak. We met on Monday because we had some additional guidance that came down that basically stipulated that in order for the projects we're working on to be eligible for the CARES Act funding, that we actually not only had to have POs issued, but to have the products delivered and in hand by end of the year. So I had to kind of hustle and work with my vendors to try and determine what things I could get that would help our workers to work remotely from home that we could attribute to this CARES Act. And, you know, we only have a few weeks and trying to see what they have in stock and are able to get shipped here in time has been real challenging. And I had to beg, you know, from our vendors, so to speak. But what I came up with was we had originally spec'd out some laptops, but they did have these Dell 2-in-1 Surface tablet equivalent laptops available that we can get here by end of the year. And the benefit of these is that they'll work with our existing docking stations that we have, monitors, and they come with a 3-year warranty. And they're also serviceable. So unlike the Surface tablet, when you have a battery that fails, we can actually break these open. We can get in, replace the battery. So there's a lot of benefits to this Dell product versus the Surface tablet. And they have built-in webcams, all the features that somebody would need to be able to work from home. And we can use them to replace some of the desktops that the employees have here at the county. So the idea being that they can have this portable device that they can come in, plug in, do their work here, you know, when they're in the office, and then take it home at night. And we'll have them set up with a docking station, monitor, a printer scanner, and a keyboard at home. So it's really to try and make that work from home experience as seamless as possible. So the quote that I worked up, and I think you guys have the breakdown. Is
I'm pulling it up. I'll put it on the screen.
Brian's going to pull it up here real quick.
It's wonderful. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll keep moving on. So basically, what we're looking at is I kind of went through all the departments and, and tried to calculate how many people based on our current remote usage, what would fit those needs, people that are working from home currently that don't have equipment. So I came up with a number of 85 of these surface replacement tablets, 110 docking stations, 125 monitors, 43 multifunction printers, which do printing and scanning, some additional Zoom licensing that we need for individuals to be able to run, full Zoom meetings, some PC speakers, and another item is Cisco IP phones. So with one of the previous projects we talked about, if you remember, was allowing people to have their extensions at home. Yeah. They'll also need to have a device for which to, take those calls. So I'm including some Cisco desk phones identical to what we have here in the office today that we can issue to employees to take home. And that total amount for everything that I got came to $183 or $183,000 roughly. And I have the breakdown there below. And really, these are things, that I verified with Dell, and they're going to do their best effort, and the other companies that we're working with, to try and get them here by end of the year. And that's really the kicker. We had to see what they had in stock, what they were able to ship, because if they arrive late, my understanding is, and Ben and Brian are going to go into this a little, that we will not be able to apply CARES Act funding to it. So there is, Brian's going to talk a little bit about that. There is somewhat of a risk if that shipment runs late, because we are dependent on FedEx and some things on that it may not arrive until right after the 31st.
Madam Chair, can I follow up on Chris's statements?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here's what we know to be the case. We've got, out of 800 employees, up to, on any given day, as many as 200 working remotely. I think that Chris and his team have done an excellent job since March trying to push equipment out into the system to allow people to work remotely. However, we still have many, many folks that just do not have the technology to do their jobs from home. And just in this room alone, I can tell you that our finance department has struggled with doing remote work. Myself, Annette, you name it, we're being impacted by the lack of technology. Chris has bent over backwards to line up these recommendations, which I firmly am a supporter of. He is going to be able to get us additional technology, get these pushed out to people that need it, people that could be working remotely, and we're going to be able to book this to the CARES Act. There is some risk here. If for whatever reason we don't take possession prior to the end of the calendar year, we could be potentially on the hook to pay for this stuff. Now, I view that risk is very low. I think that Chris has lined up equipment that'll be here. But moreover, I view that risk as relatively low because our reality is that since March, we have had a significant amount of our staff being encouraged to work from home. We need to get them the tools so that they can do their jobs effectively while not in the office. We need to just recognize that despite vaccination efforts, this is likely to go on for more months to come. Yeah. I wish I could tell you that I'm confident that by the summer, we're going to have everyone back in the office. I'm not. And I think that we had a situation just a couple of weeks ago where the bulk of our finance department was out, either due to direct infection or having loved ones that were fighting the infection. I want to be able to have finance fully engaged regardless of if they're in their office or if they're working from home. And I'm just picking on finance. I'd like to be able to say the same is true for the road department, the health department, and on and on. Yeah. So that's a long-winded statement to say, I recommend that we move forward with the quotes that Chris has presented.
Wonderful. And how will we do this? We can say it in our finance committee, or does it go to the full board?
So this is one that you give us the green light. We have the requisition on today's Board of Commission meeting. Now, you can slap my hand if need be. I had a feeling that there would be strong support. If Finance says absolutely not, we can pull the requisition from the Board of Commission meeting and it will stop. If Finance says yes, this makes sense, then we allow the requisition to proceed as part of today's full board meeting. And Chris and Finance are going to be working today to finalize purchase orders and to lean on Dell to get all of this stuff here prior to the end of the calendar year.
If I could add, I just need to emphasize that timing really.
Who's talking?
Chris, right here, Chris Wire.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just add that timing is really essential here because every day that Dell had a stock of less than 300 of these tablets on Tuesday. They have no laptops. Every day that stock is going down, and if we don't move quickly, then we run the risk of the things that we need not being available to ship and not getting here on time. So that's why we tried to get everything lined up for today and make sure that we were ready to move quickly. I've had verbal confirmation from Dell and the other vendors that we're trying to work with that if we get the POs out to them today, they will ship. So that's. We're trying to do everything we can to take advantage of that CARES Act money, to the full potential.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Please, committee members.
Madam Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
This question is for Chris and for Brian. Where is this vendor located at?
A lot of them.
Well,
I'm saying for the computers, for the laptops.
it's from Dell, and I believe they're based out of Texas. Their global headquarters is, but I mean they're a global company. They're all over the world.
Right, but I'm saying, where do they ship from? Where are they at?
It's probably going to be wherever their stock is located right now. I mean, they have warehouses all over the country. So I didn't get specific information from where the laptops were shipping from. They just a verbal guarantee that if we got the order to them by the end of the day, essentially today, that they could have the equipment to us by the 31st.
All right, my reason for talking this way is the 4800 for the Zoom, the CMS communications for the IP, and the Amazon webcams equal about what? 17, 18,000. So the main thing is the Dell PC hardware, correct?
Correct.
My question to Brian is, that is so important for us to have. Would it be worth our while to find out exactly where these Dell computers are and they're going to ship from? And if there is any issue at all that they possibly could not get here, send somebody on a road trip in a county vehicle and pick the damn things up.
Yeah.
Well,
just my thoughts.
I appreciate the thought. I think that if Finance gives the thumbs up, we should be in good shape to move forward. I know that we've already created the requisition. The purchase orders would be completed immediately following the Board of Commission, and Chris and his team would have the green light to move forward. So I think we're going to be okay. And I appreciate the thought of, a possible road trip. I hope we don't have to do that, but I can definitely follow up with Chris to say, do we need to look at some type of alternative expedited shipping?
Well, and my point was, Brian, is I am going to recommend that we do this. And I think the other committee members will say so to go ahead. I don't think that's the issue. My issue is if you do find out for some odd reason that there would be a delay that we couldn't, my recommendation to the committee and it would be to the full board that you have the authority to send somebody to go and get the thing so that we don't lose out on this. I mean, you have to understand that all the shipping companies right now, UPS and FedEx, right now their big thing is getting the COVID vaccine. The next thing they are getting out is all of the Christmas related items to people. So this becomes a very, very busy next couple of weeks. I just wanted to throw that out there so that you shouldn't have to come back to this board or to this committee or the board to ask for that authority to send somebody to get them. I'm just saying if it happens to be a plan B, that's all.
Yeah, if this stuff was sitting in Chicago and it would speed things up, I wouldn't hesitate to send staff to go get it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We don't know where it's at. That's why I asked Chris.
Yeah,
where it could possibly be shipped from.
In all honesty, it's most likely sitting in multiple warehouses across the country. They're gonna, or the world, you know, they're gonna take it from wherever they can to try and get it here on time. We've already received a number of these 7210 tablets. They're shipping out relatively quickly. So we've been, you know, getting them in short order. So I feel confident in saying that if we get that order out today, that we'll get the tablets, which is honestly the bulk of the cost there. The monitors as well are shipping out very quickly. So they said they had all this stuff on hand and should be able to get it to us by the end of the year.
Madam,
thank you. That was my only question, Madam Chair.
Madam,
Thank
are you ready for a motion, Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Harrison. I move that we proceed with the IT CARES Act recommendations from administration.
May I have support?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Scott, I'll support that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do you all, well, we'll know by the vote. Do you have any other discussion?
No, ma'am.
And Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman, Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Scott, I would ask, would you report on this when we come to the full meeting, please?
Would love to, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam
Next
Chair, I've got two
Yeah.
requests. I know we're on a tight timeline, and we've got the standard agenda items. However, we do have Warren here today, and last week he presented to the full Board Commission on the designated assessor position. He has since met with all of the local units. I was hoping we could just give you all a 2-minute update on how that position stands.
Please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just wanted to give a quick update. If you recall from last week and our prior committee discussions, that the agreement requires a majority of the assessing jurisdictions to be on board. So as part of the resolution that's going to the full board later today, it states that a majority of the assessing districts have agreed to this designation. And we believe that to be true. We have not had any reluctance or any indications of anyone not being on board. That said, we're in the process of collecting signatures still. So we've gotten a couple signed. We know of some dates where board meetings are occurring. Some of them, unfortunately, are going to be in January. That's relevant because we need to get this taken care of by December 31st. So my plan here is to submit whatever we have to the state, even if we don't have a majority of the signatures yet, with an explanation that there's going to be more signatures forthcoming, but we wanted to be in compliance in the meantime. And I can tell you that we are not alone in this problem. There are other counties that are facing the same situation. So I don't anticipate that to be a problem of any kind, but I wanted to make you aware of it all the same.
Okay. Any further questions regarding that? Okay, thank you very much. Something else, Brian?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the one other simple item was last night I emailed you all a document from Todd Rainey. And I'm just pulling this up onto the screen. Some of you were on the EOC call yesterday, and you received an update from the sheriff. We had a vehicle that, a sheriff's department vehicle that was crushed over in Waterville Township. The officer and the other driver are fine, but it's more than likely the vehicle is totaled. It was one of the older vehicles, so we will likely see some insurance reimbursement from it, but that supply chain issue for replacement vehicles continues to haunt us. At a minimum, I would recommend that we authorize Todd Rainey to order at least one new Tahoe. And given the supply chain issues, Todd Rainey's recommendation was authorizing him to order two Tahoes, just knowing that it's probably going to be spring before we see the vehicle start to come in. So that would be my recommendation as well, is give him the authorization to get two of these ordered, knowing full well that he's going to be really scrambling to find the vehicles to purchase.
What year will it be, 20 or 21?
I think your audio broke up a bit there. It would be, I think you asked, is it a 20 or a 21? This would be a 21.
Okay.
And prior to this, the board or the committee authorized 7 vehicles. Since that initial 7 was ordered, we had 1 vehicle totaled. We've now had 2 vehicles that have been taken out of service. The first one, we were able to get $55,000 back from MMRMA, and I would anticipate on this second vehicle, probably maybe around 10 grand is what we'll get back. So there is some offsetting revenue to help with the cost, but the bigger issue is just the supply chain. Just the vehicles just get pushed further and further out. So I'm sorry for the last minute addition, but the accident occurred, I think, on Monday.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions, committee?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott, I have a question. Do we need a consensus or do we need a motion?
Motion would be preferred.
I'll make the motion for us to purchase the 2 sheriff's replacement vehicles for the ones that were wrecked.
This is Commissioner Harrison. I'll second his motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. Anything else, Administrator Doucette?
No, the next item is Doug James on the COLA. And I'm going to pull up that file. I've got both Ben and Doug. I wasn't sure who we're going to do this, but Doug, you're pretty far back, but feel free to come forward. Yeah.
Would you state your name, please?
Oh, Doug James.
And is Ben there with you, or did he leave?
He left.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Please talk to us.
Go ahead and start. I'm just pulling up the file.
Did we send this memo to them?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. What I gave you is a document with regard to COLA for the retirees. A question had come up with there was some concern there, or some retirees were asking me to provide some kind of an answer about a COLA. What I have done here is try to pull together historic facts and our current position of the fund. In this memo, Annette and Shelley did a great job of pulling historical information as well. But in essence, we haven't issued over the last 15 years, we've issued 3 COLA increases. One in 2006, one in 2007, and one in 2012. The ones that occurred in 2006 and 2007, if you go down a little further, at the end of 2005, which is when this decision was made, we were 97.2% funded, which you could reasonably say, okay, we could do something from a COLA perspective. However, that's not the case any longer, as we all know. We are closer to the area of 67.8% funded, and we have an actuarial liability of $266.636 million. I've attempted to show you here as well where we were in 2005, and tried to list here for you the where we are currently with the retirement, the last reporting that we had with our fund, and if we were to give a COLA increase for each 1%, it would be about $164,000 a year. So what my recommendation, or what I've written here is, obviously this is something that you folks need to make a decision on, but though we recognize that there's an increase in cost of living for those folks, are increases in insurance costs given the current condition of the fund and the fact that we are really 67% funded, and the state has placed all pension plans under scrutiny and reporting with corrective actions. In the future, if our funding falls too low, my recommendation at this point would not to do a COLA for 2021. And that's the long version of the memo.
Members, you have any questions? Is there a resolution in anything? There's no resolution for this today, is there?
No, it's kind of, we're in a little different territory than we were back 15 years ago, when we formed the pension board. Essentially that went out of the commissioner realm, I believe, and there hasn't been any resolution since then.
There hasn't been any resolutions, but if I can interject, please.
Sure.
If there was a decision to be made to approve one, I would think that you would certainly want to make sure that you have that in your format, which is a resolution.
Yeah, oh, sure.
That's what you do to prove what you're speaking, what you're doing. But the last one that was done does allow the finance committee to make that recommendation or not.
Members?
The pension board was formed.
Yeah, well, the pension board's been there. It's just a matter of their role.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is officially a no fun topic, but the reality is the fund just does not have the additional cash to do a cost of living adjustment or a COLA. I think that a simple motion to affirm the recommendation from the finance director would be sufficient to give staff direction and to notify the plan members that no cost of living adjustment will occur for 2021.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Harrison. I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Scott, I'll support.
Okay, it's moved and properly supported. Any further discussion? Stephanie, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Yarborough,
I'm going to abstain. My husband is a retiree and they told me to stay out of this.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you. Other?
Madam Chair, that's the last of your bah humbug items on the day. Next up, we have Dan Fetty. He's going to do a presentation on community development block grant, specifically tied to the CARES Act. And we do have a presentation. Dan, do you want me to do the screen share or do you have it?
Can you do it, Brian? Because I don't know if I have the
Yep.
technical understanding to do it.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask Commissioner Harrison, Commissioner Harrison, if he would make a report on this. So could you give him a second?
Sure. Cool.
Okay.
Well, Commissioner, I'll also be appearing before the full board today to give them the same information.
Okay, then, okay, good, you'll do it. All right. Okay,
Okay.
all right, I'll find something else for him to do.
That's
Good.
how it works here in finance, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Well, Brian's pulling up the presentation. I'll give you the quick 2-minute version of what we're facing here. When I met with you 2 weeks ago to talk about this block grant, CARES Act, I did indicate we were going to have some real challenges with the money because there were all these additional federal requirements associated with the use of the funds that we had to show that the money was being used to reimburse costs that were incurred to respond to COVID in a manner that specifically benefits a vulnerable, low to moderate income population. And we went through this 2 weeks ago, and I said this is a kind of a wrinkle in the process that we were a little concerned about. And it's proved to be quite challenging to find costs that are eligible under those qualifications. We've looked at all of our internal county costs and determined that they're either ineligible, or if they are eligible, they're currently being covered by other funds. So, oh, here we go. Great. So, Brian, can you go to the next slide real quick? Okay. There you go. That's perfect right there. So because we couldn't find eligible internal county costs that we could apply this money to, we called the MEDC and said, we're having a real struggle with this. Any recommendations or suggestions that you have for this? And they said, well, what you might want to do is look towards your nonprofit partners who were active participants in the countywide response effort run by your EOC and see whether or not they incurred eligible costs in an effort to assist the county in emergency response matters, which makes sense. So we did contact both United Way and Area Agency on Aging. And the reason we went specifically to those two organizations is because they are signatories on the disaster response consortium. For those of you that have sat out at the EOC from time to time, you know that both Area Agency on Aging and United Way literally have a seat at the table. I think they're at table 4 out there. And we rely on those agencies to coordinate response activities to at-risk or vulnerable populations. So it made sense for us to ask those two agencies because of their longstanding participation in the emergency response process. We have, again, the requirements are that we have to show that the costs were incurred and the service or good was delivered by December 30th. The same struggle that we're dealing with in the computer discussion you just had earlier. We do, however, have until the end of February to make our final submissions to the MEDC. So there is time for us to kind of sort through this and prepare a listing of all potential eligible costs. Brian, can you go to the next one? And, this is what we're talking about. I mean, this is an example of why this is a little frustrating for us because like plexiglass that we install or anyone installs between the public and an employee is considered eligible, but plexiglass installed between employees is considered to be ineligible because it's an internal cost of operations. Okay. Next slide. There you go. Telehealth, for example, telehealth services and the telecommunications equipment associated with that is eligible, but technology upgrades for remote working are not eligible. I think we went through this before, in fact. Next slide, Ryan. Food distribution is considered to be an eligible cost if any agency or government entity was involved in food distribution to a vulnerable population. But rent or mortgage assistance is considered ineligible. Now, we could go into the great details of why that's the case, but it basically pertains to the federal regulations on this money. Next slide, Brian. So in talking to the United Way, we asked them to submit to us a list of expenses that they've incurred as a direct response to the COVID pandemic, and specifically expenses that were beneficial to a low to moderate vulnerable population. And we got about $206,000 that they directly expended in the form of subgrants to recipients or in direct expenditures to individual groups of people. They provided, I think, 17 grants to school districts throughout Berrien County to assist with social and emotional curriculum support, technology for remote learning purposes, direct food distributions for children that were receiving supplemental food benefits, personal care items and cleaning supplies for their schools, and telehealth through various mental health organizations to assist kids who are, having a daughter that age, I can tell you the telehealth is kind of important for these kids right now. Area Agency on Aging ran and continues to run a program where elderly individuals who test positive for COVID but are in such a condition that they don't require hospitalization, Area Agency is providing financial assistance to essentially set up home quarantine systems for these individuals to try to keep them out of the hospital while also providing palliative care for them while they're at home. This would certainly be eligible under this program. So they were funding this out of an allocation of CARES Act that they had previously received, but they ran out of funding at the end of October, and they have subsequently incurred $120,000 of cost in November and through December to maintain this program. And this would be perfectly eligible. It's kind of form fit for the block grant because it's a direct intervention to protect a vulnerable population.
Good.
Next slide. So we are continuing to reach out to other NPOs. I've talked to Rocky Adams about looking at the other disaster relief consortium members that serve out in the EOC. We're going to poll them and see if we can find additional response activities that are eligible. And we have to ensure that these are paid for and received by December 30th. We got to ensure that there's no duplication of reimbursement. The parties have to be a current vendor with us. They have to have appropriate 990 filings with the IRS, and we have to ensure that they're not on the federal debarment list to receive these funds. Additionally, we're going to have indemnity agreements in place with all of these agencies as well, spelling out the terms that, if we reimburse their costs and it turns out that those costs are deemed ineligible in a later audit, these agencies will have to repay the county for that reimbursement so that we're not on the hook for that potential mistake. So we are going to prepare a full package of materials for the Board of Commissioners in the coming weeks based on the responses we get from the nonprofit agencies and our determination of what is eligible and ineligible for reimbursement. And we're also coordinating that in advance with MEDC so we don't run into any problems during the reimbursement process. So that's a quick explanation of where we are on this. It's a shift of where we thought we would be, but the goal is to try to get this money back into the hands of the people that helped us respond to this pandemic for the last 9 months.
Let me say, Commissioner Harrison, I had asked you to make this report, but Dan Fetty's going to do it because he has the information and all. So at a regular board meeting, he will make this presentation. I'd like to ask any discussion, please, on this report. Let me tell you what I'm wondering about. And Brian, Administrator Dissett, will you help me? I had our Director of Benton Harbor Public Library get in touch with Brian Dissett. And I'd like to know if there's any movement, or did you all talk and anything going on with that?
Yes, to answer your question, I did speak with her. She was able to email a request that our staff took a look at. In total, I think we've looked at close to a dozen local nonprofits. We recognize that without a doubt, if funds are granted to United Way, to Area Agency on Aging, we're likely to hear some complaints that other nonprofits did not receive any of the block grant funding. We have looked at close to, I think, a dozen local nonprofits that had expenses, and we're trying to review each and every one to see if any of those expenses would be eligible for possible reimbursement. To answer your question, yes, we have talked to her. As far as the eligibility for possible reimbursement from the block grants, I don't think that they're a great fit for us. The Area Agency on Aging and the United Way seem to be the best two fits. Number one, they are part of our emergency management system. Number two, their expenses have already been they've already engaged in making these expenses. Number three, they've provided services across the entire county. So they just seem to be a better fit. Dan, your team has been looking at the various NPOs that have been in touch with us. Is there anything else that you would add?
No, I think that covers it pretty clearly. And there's no question that multiple NPOs throughout the county incurred
I can't hear you. What?
I don't think there's any question that multiple nonprofits in a county or throughout the county incurred costs to respond to needs in their locality. But what we're trying to do is narrow those nonprofits that were directly operating in the process of a countywide emergency response. And we need to ensure that whoever receives this money was engaged in a countywide effort. So unfortunately, some nonprofits who have valid, legitimate reasons to have expended money won't fit into that kind of, determination. But we are giving every one of them a fair review. We're looking at the information closely to see how broad its reach is and whether or not the costs are eligible. If we get to a point where there's still money left over in 4 or 5 weeks and we have not found a way to allocate it, we'll probably start drilling down into some of the smaller or local nonprofits, but we want to get the larger ones covered first.
Okay, I want to put this on your mind and for you all to truly consider it, and that it's Benton Harbor Public Library. And what our partners are Benton Charter Township and the city of Benton Harbor. We deal with a lot of homeless. There are people from all over that use our library. And what we do is one thing that we talked about in our meeting is we provide services to the community. So people come there to make copies. They come there for notary. They come there for faxes, for a lot of things. And we have machines that, could be upgraded. So we reach a lot of people. And it is economically, down. And any paperwork or whatever business you need, we have it. Of the people that we need, Wi-Fi usage, with people sitting in the door just to use the Wi-Fi. So we talk about hotspots and all kinds of things. So we're not a poo-putt, and we've been in business since 1892. No, that might be when the ship sailed. But anyway, I'm asking you to give some true thought and look at the public library. And we have all the paperwork and anything that you need. I know I'm prejudiced, but that's what I say. So,
Commissioner, as I indicated, we're giving each one of these requests a thorough review and an honest review as we look through it.
Yeah, and I want you to be, and I'm not, mashing you, but I know what they do.
Madam Chair, just show kind of the apples and oranges. We have a similar request coming out of Commissioner Scott's backyard. There's the Neighbor to Neighbor program that I think it's Peg Corings brought to my attention. And we're taking a look at their program. That one's really kind of targeted for the New Buffalo area. So we're absolutely aware that we've got just a long line of nonprofits that we would really like to help. And we're not real comfortable picking winners and losers. And honestly, that's the reason that I've asked Dan to talk with you all today, because this is one that I think it's the right thing to do to push these block grant dollars out to nonprofits. But I also know that it's one that we're going to hear some grumbling, because it's going to be viewed as though there's some winners and some losers. Unfortunately, we're trying to operate within the parameters set by the MEDC, by the state of Michigan. So there's really some handcuffs on what we can do.
And I understand that, and being right, I would not want it to be anything that was not correct. I'd like to let you know that the library has also received Upton Foundation grants, something from Berrien, so we're in the system at a higher, a high level of production is what we do. So I'll leave that alone. Commissioner Harrison, will you make no, Dan is going to make the report on this.
I will be there.
Okay, that'll be fine. Any other questions or discussions? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all you're doing and for the rush. I know the clock is on you, and I support. I just want to be sure that it goes to our community, because we do have a feeling that United Way gives us $2 and millions somewhere else. So that's what I want to say, what the thought is about what they do. Our next item on the agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before Dan leaves, I'd like to say something that's completely off topic.
Okay.
But I know that a while ago, I can't tell you how many months or whatever because of COVID, but this was, if you remember when we discussed when TMI left and we were going to take over and get numbers on Berrien bus and things like that.
Yes.
And then also what was discussed, I believe, by Dan and by Evan in our committee meeting was that once we got those numbers and everything, then we would see about our operating costs and all of this, because at that point in time, we talked about possibly changing the RFP. And I'm just wondering when would that even go out? I mean, are we still looking at doing a remodeled RFP for Berrien bus for people to bid on? I just wanted to ask you that. I didn't want to bring it up during the full board meeting, but you were here, so that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Good question.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that briefly. The short answer is we are not looking at bidding out the contract to a third-party operator for a number of reasons, but the primary one is we have no confidence that anyone's going to bid on it. Considering last time, I think we got one bid, and that's when we were a much more viable system. We have been meeting routinely, Commissioner, with what we ECAT team, and this would be Commissioner Harrison and Commissioner Curran. In fact, we just had another meeting yesterday morning to discuss changes to the bus system and plans on how to establish some kind of sufficiency moving forward. I guess I'd leave it to the commissioners to report out on what's being discussed, but we are trying to craft a plan that we can start to implement in the next 3 to 6 months that we think will provide some way of more or less maintaining the bus system for the users that need it. But I think we're going to have a fuller report on that shortly.
Okay, fine. No more on that. I know we've got other business. I just wanted to bring that up real quick to you, that I did want that to not be forgotten. But okay, go ahead. Whatever's next on the agenda. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. And that board appointments.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. We're just gonna do those on the 23rd. You're gonna be here anyway. We won't have the pressure of the meeting coming, and we'll just talk about it then.
Okay.
So
May I have a motion? Yeah, to approve the minutes. December 3rd minutes.
This is Commissioner Harrison. I'll move approval of the December 3rd minutes.
Thank you. May I have a support?
Commissioner Scott supports Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you. Any corrections, questions? Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Yeah, so
Anything-
you just have the two resolutions that are going to the full board today. One is the contract with Merit for the broadband study. And the
Yes.
other one is the approval of the weekly bills. If anybody has any questions about those.
And it's just a consensus?
Yeah, I just need consensus. They're on the board agenda today.
Okay. I agree with them being there. You all fine with, ready to vote on them? Present
Oh,
them?
yeah, I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay. Yes.
Also, Brian, haven't you got something also for us, friend of the court?
Yep, I'll let you get through the couple of resolutions, then I'll move very fast.
Okay, and the weekly bills, you all looked at those and you're fine with them?
Yeah.
All right, then that's it. Administrator Dissett?
Okay, public comments, so let me, don't.
Yeah, we do have public comments as well.
Yes. So go ahead to that.
Eric Lester from St. Joseph Township. Good morning, Annette. Thanks for making this meeting as well as the administration committee meeting available. Merry Christmas to you and the commissioners. That's all the public comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, I've got up on the screen, I've got a report that was shared with the administration committee at their 8 o'clock meeting today. The admin committee has been working on a remodel of the friend of the court space. The remodel is intended to generate more space for the workers. It's intended to then also remove asbestos from the work area. And then lastly, we will close out with replacement furniture for the members of the Friend of the Court staff. Back in the summer, the admin committee met with the staff at Friend of the Court. They walked the space. They agreed that this is something that they wanted to see progress. Earlier today, the admin committee recommended that we proceed with the project. Now, the one caveat on this is when we first started working on this, we had hoped to book 100% of the cost to the CARES Act. Unfortunately, we're just bumping up against the timeline. I do believe that we will be able to book some of these expenses to the CARES Act, but not all of them. Now, with that said, I would highly recommend that we proceed with the project. It's something that's definitely a needed expense. And if finance is agreeable to proceed with the project, what I will then do is work with Judge Dwayne to get our bids turned into contract documents and bring it to the full board at the meeting on the 30th for final consideration. If you all say proceed, I'm going to lean on Metro Business to see what we can do to take possession of that $53,000 of furniture prior to the end of the calendar year. I'll book our Avid Marsh expenses, our Villa expenses to CARES Act. But the Brown & Brown construction, I just don't see how we're going to be able to get that booked. They can't move into the site until after asbestos abatement is complete. So we are taking on some risk. If we're unable to fund this with CARES Act, we have the ability to fund it with either fund balance or with delinquent tax revenues. So I don't have any concerns about our ability to fund it. I just had hoped to book 100% of it to CARES Act, and I just don't see us being able to do that due to, honestly, just due to the limited number of days left in the calendar year.
Okay.
I just tried to do 10 minutes in about 2 minutes, so I apologize if I moved a little quick.
It's okay.
Madam Chair,
Any questions? Yes.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Scott, this is a question for Brian. Brian,
Yep.
if you go back to your screen, you don't have to go back to it, but you could possibly get Brown & Brown, if Brown & Brown would list Villa Environmental as a subcontractor, and then that would increase Brown & Brown's construction from 52.4 plus the 19.9. then it could possibly be written off, because that way Brown and Brown construction could actually start if a subcontractor was working for them.
That's a good suggestion. If you all give me the thumbs up, there's no formal action needed other than to say you want to proceed. I've got to work with Judge Gawain on the contract prep, but later today I can give a call over to Avon Marsh, our construction manager, to see if Brown and Brown and Villa would be willing to team up one contract, and we could give them a quicker authorization. It's a good suggestion, and it may be a good way to book more of this to the CARES Act.
I agree. Other members, please, your thought?
I agree.
I agree. I'll give consensus for this to move forward if that's what it takes.
Me too. Thank you,
All right.
Commissioner. Thank you, Brian.
Well, Madam Chair, we officially have about 2 minutes before the start of the Board of Commission meeting.
Yes.
So with respect, I know Annette's got 1,000 things she needs to do. So if you all are comfortable, I'm gonna look to her to see if there's anything else needed for finance.
No, there's nothing else needed.
Okay. Madam Chair, we need to shut down the finance meeting so that we can start the Zoom and YouTube for the Board of Commission meeting.
All right. Then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Hi. You brought Mr. Weaver too. Oh, you can sit up at the table if you want to. Yeah, you don't have to be thrown.
Have you wiped them down?
Ah.
Disinfect your buddy.